Always wanted to do that. We appreciate y'all being here. It's 10:30. We're gonna, now that the speaker is here, we're gonna go ahead and get started with our program. Thank you for being in attendance. This is the December meeting for the Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee, and I'm calling it to order officially. I would like to welcome everyone that's here, and I would ask you to please, if you've got a telephone with you, please put it on silent so that we don't interrupt everybody. When I did that and realized that maybe mine was on. But we appreciate you being here, and we hope that we can provide some information that will be valuable to you, and you're going to have a spot that you can ask some questions and whatnot. Do I have someone that will ask for approval of the agenda? June the 16th agenda?
I will.
Second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right, now I'm asking for approval for the June 17th meetings. I was asking for the agenda meeting, and I think I did, but anyway, for the June 17th meeting, I sent those out to everybody. If you got them, do I have a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve the minutes of June 17th.
Second? A second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, at this point, since I'm going to ask the public if any of you have any comments that you want to make or any questions that you want to have before we get started. If so, we'll ask you to come up to the podium up here and cut the mic on and say your name and address. Anyone have anything?
You might want to mention too that you'll get a second chance after we get done
well,
with this at the end to ask questions.
We're gonna have a question, and unless the mayor decides to talk too long, we're gonna try to get this thing handled so you can get plenty of questions in. You know, you got a new mayor, you got to give him a little bit of grief. You know what I mean? But anyway, so no comments. So we're gonna move right on. Here in 5, I've got discussion of the BISAC Committee 2026 membership, staffing, etc. The reason I wanted to bring this up is that we want to make sure that all of the members on BISAC knows at least part of the change that we're going to be making. But I have been the chairman for BISAC for the past 2.5 years, and I have been an elected member from the community. I am now going to be on the committee as an appointed alderman that the mayor has appointed me to be on this committee and be the alderman representative on this committee. We do have an advertising already out. I think that's advertising. Well, the manager's going to speak to that, so I'll let her say that when we get to that point, unless you want to do it now.
I can just touch on that now.
Okay.
Since the board appointed you as the Board of Aldermen representative to the Beach Inlet Sound Advisory Committee, we published a notice for a vacancy, a membership vacancy. The deadline is January 17th, and we advertised it as Phase 5 or at large, so that gives you leeway depending on what applications that you get in. Obviously, you were a Phase 5 representative, but if we don't get anyone from Phase 5, the committee and board can consider someone at large as well.
Okay, everybody hear that? So that's, I wanted to make sure that we got that before we go into next year. Everybody would know what the changes are going to be. We do have everyone that's on the board currently, everybody that's on the board currently will not be going off. Where everyone here has,
Committee.
Pardon?
Committee.
That's right, the committee. I'm on so many things now, I don't know which I'm on today. But y'all are in the BISAC meeting, so you just understand, whatever I say today, I mean BISAC. It doesn't take much to confuse Larry. But in any event, everyone that's on the committee will be staying on the committee unless they, for some reason, get off, because their term of service is not extended. I think that the closest one is 2027, and we've got several that's 2028. So Except for the spot that's being advertised, everyone that's on the committee will continue to be there. I am in Phase 5, so I was a Phase 5 representative, that's why we're opening back up the Phase 5 because of that, because have been appointed by the mayor to continue to do this. We will be, everybody that's on here, our year does not start until February, and in February, when we have our elections, and a new chairman is voted on and whatnot. So that nothing needs to happen until February, because until that time, I am still the chairman and will be until we have the elections in February. Is that correct, Manager? Did I get that right? Okay, so, and I wanted to make sure that everybody here understood that. And it's, somebody did ask me, could I still be the chairman? And the answer is yes. If I'm elected, I can still be the chairman. So we'll just see what happens in February on that. You have anything to say,
Yeah,
Mayor?
let me add a couple of things. And I think you guys know from his participation on here how important this committee and this beach project is, and it's come a long way. And we'll be talking about that. The other reason for today, and Larry and I talked about it today, was to make sure we had this. As soon as he got elected, was we've got some decisions to make. We wanted to make sure everybody was up to date. It also will give us a chance, and I think Chris is going to address this. We've had a number of issues on the island relating to erosion over the last couple of months in terms of what's going on, and so Chris can give us some insight. We've had so many comments on that, and one of the concerns, and I know Alice and Larry and I talked about this, is at the normal alderman meeting, there really isn't time to take 2 or 3 hours to talk about this project and to really get into the details and stuff. And so that was the purpose of this, to let everybody know where we are. And there'll be other items on the January agenda relating directly to this. So I would encourage people to show up for that. And I know the board's very happy with Larry doing this. He's been in this committee and stuff too. I think more than anything else, even though the committee doesn't make decisions, it's a nice poke in the ribs for the board to remember that we've got a beach project and a lot of stuff going on right now. So anyway, with that, thank you. And again, appreciate that. And Chris, I know you're prepared to do a lot of talking about what we're doing right now. So Alice, did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay, so are there any questions from our committee I just want to make sure that y'all understood, sort of, so you didn't have to wonder, well, what's going to happen and who's going to be what, but we are going to be adding another member.
Assuming we get applications.
Assuming we get applications correctly. And we will not be doing anything else as far as staffing and chairman and anything else until February, when everything comes up again.
And I'm sorry, I should have added one other thing. For people that didn't watch or go to the last alderman meeting, we've got a number of liaison and stuff. We've got 3 new aldermen. And so what we did is we took the critical ones to appoint, which was Larry to get on this one, and some other ones that Alice and I talked about. So there's a number of other things that are going on, but this putting somebody on this board and addressing this thing were the top 4 or 5 things we wanted to get done. And again, I think Mark's in the back right there, but with new board members coming on, we wanted to make sure we kept this thing going and didn't wait a couple months.
And do want to just real quickly introduce the other 2 new board members. That's Mark Barefoot back in the back, and Kip Malcolm's right back on this side. So you've got all the newbies right here. We can be bought off. No. Can't say that. In any event, okay, so if there's no more questions or comments about this part, all right, then what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and move into the having the manager discuss anything that she thinks is pertinent for this committee and to bring us up to speed with what's happening on the beach and shoreline protection. Manager Darian?
Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As you're all aware, our beach operations have paused for the season, for turtle season. We started with the PTC 8 emergency dune berm work last season. We paused for turtle season. We're getting ready to start back up again the first week of January. ST Wooten, who's the contractor, will be mobilizing and going on site to start that project back up again. Again, this is placing 61,000 cubic yards of sand in the dune. It's not on the active beach area, but on the dune. And the board, this is part of the PTC 8 storm event. So sand that was surveyed as lost during that event, that's what we're working to replace at this time. We expect that the project will be completed within 3 months, once they start the first week of January.
Allison, that's the Dune project, correct?
Correct, Dune project.
Okay.
And you might want to remember, we allocated $3 million.
Yes, the board approved $2,937,000. We had available to move around in another fund while we wait for FEMA to hopefully obligate funds for this project. We're still working through the FEMA process to get the funds obligated. We've been at one level. It's my understanding we should hear something soon. Hopefully, it sounds positive. You never know for sure, but we do expect to hear something back from them very, very soon, since the government is back to work and everything seems to be moving. It's moving again. Permitting is also underway to install more beach matting, like the beach matting that you see at the Jeffries Access. We installed 2 beach access to improve access for people with mobility issues. They're installed at both areas at the Jeffries Access. We're under permitting right now for another one at access number 41, which is known as Jenkins. So it's right up the road from Jeffries. Also on Island Drive, the Rogers Bay, the access is across from Rogers Bay. We're also working with the contractor. We can't put beach matting in that area, but we're working with a contractor to get pricing on redoing that access to provide ramp access for those with wheelchairs. Also, beach access repairs have been completed at access number 43, which is Marina Way. Those have been completed, and we're working currently right now at access number 46, which is across from Oyster Lane. Those are in progress right now. And these are crossovers that were damaged in the recent events from Aaron and the nor'easter that came through. We are also continuing to work with our engineers, Chris, who's here this morning for phases 1 through 3 renourishment. And so I'll leave Chris to speak on that, which will be probably the bulk of our meeting. That concludes my report.
Money. Getting permits to do the jobs that have to be done, and I'm sorry. Did I talk loud enough? You heard the first part? Anyway, what I was basically saying is that the slowdowns are not because the town doesn't want to move forward. The slowdowns are because either we're waiting for permitting or money or something to move forward with it. We hear and understand all the problems that are out there, and we would like to resolve all of them as quickly as they come up. Unfortunately, we don't have that power because we don't have the money and the permits to do those things. So we're working, and managerial and all of our engineering staff and everybody else is moving forward as quickly as they can to make these things happen. So sometimes I know it sounds like that you're speaking to deaf ears, but it's not. I mean, we just don't know what to say when there's nothing to say because we're just waiting on something to happen. And it's so that's they're working just diligently. That's something that's going on a daily basis. Anyway, thank you. Now we're going to turn it over to Chris Gibson from TI Coastal, and he's going to discuss the 5-year, 30-year, short-term, long-term. He's going to discuss the beaches in general, and hopefully answer a lot of the questions that people would have today. Chris?
Thank
Chris?
you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to bring back up, this is actually a presentation I did for the Alderman back at the 1st of October, kind of get everybody up to speed with what's happened on the project, where we are, what we intend to do. This is a map of the planned project. Essentially what we want to do is take about 2 to 2.5 million yards of sand that has been determined to be high quality beach compatible sand out of the disposal island that is up there at the crossroads of Cedar Bush Cut and the Intercoastal Waterway. Pipe that down the Intercoastal Waterway and come across down in the general vicinity of the power lines. There's a area we can come across on the edge of that golf course and tuck under one of the existing bridges that's there on the road. That way we don't have to dig through the road or anything like that. We pop out kind of in the middle of where we want to pump on areas 1 through 3. We would pump to the south first and then turn around and pump to the north so that any extra sand we have would be able to be placed up in that northern region that's got the highest criticality.
Hey, Chris, you might want to mention, when you're talking about pumping that, the product that's going to come out of that pipe is going to look like a slurry, right?
Yeah,
So-
yeah. So the way that we move this material is it is sand mixed with water. It's about 35% sand, 65% water. If everything's working out right. If the sand is a little heavier, we have to go to a little lighter load of sand. But there's an actual density that hits the prime spot for the dredge, so that they're moving things at the proper rate and the pipeline's not getting plugged. But typically we try to shoot for about 30-35% sand. That hits the beach. If you've seen one of these where they're running out, that water velocity helps spread the sand out into a natural shape and natural slope. We tend on our designs, instead of trying to dike the material in, we let it run so that it's, because we found that the velocity and the energy coming out of the pipeline is very similar to a day-to-day sea condition here on Topsail Beach. And that way we wind up with the sand matching the natural slopes without having to do a lot of bulldozer work.
And then before you leave that real quick, compare that to how much you're going to move through there on a daily basis versus a truck haul. So this is not going to be a truck haul.
So this is, again, like you said, it's not a truck haul project. On the truck haul project, we move approximately 3,000 cubic yards a day on a good day. That's roughly 300 trucks, 250 to 300 trucks. On a good day here, we'll move 40,000 cubic yards, which is the equivalent of 400 trucks. No, 4,000 trucks. Sorry, lost a zero there. So we're jumping up by tenfold. In this case, we're talking about, with the truck haul project coming up this fall, or this winter, we're looking at somewhere on the order of 60,000 over 3 months. We would see that placed out there in a day and a half. And we would expect to have 2.5 million yards placed over a 6-month period, where we're only looking at 60,000 yards truck haul over a 90-day period. So it's a much more efficient way of doing things. They will build typically 200 to 300 feet a day, and that's including dune and 100 to 150 foot of beach and the slope. Each day they would be moving probably 200 to 300 feet. In some cases where it's a little narrower, they might move a little faster. Places that have really been hit and it's a little fatter, they might move a little slower, but that's the general speed of the movement.
So just to follow up, only because of questions I've gotten at HOA meetings, why have we not used this in the past versus truck haul?
So the reason we've used truck haul in the past was, as the storms came through, they were smaller amounts of material. One project might be 200,000 yards, one might be 50,000 yards, one might be 60,000 yards. And when you looked at those to come in with a dredge, it costs about $10 million to get the dredge here. That's before grain one of sand is placed. So when you distribute that $10 million over 50,000 yards, that's $200 a cubic yard that you're getting before you ever placed a grain of sand. And then you're looking at $15 to $20 a cubic yard on top of that. So the economics of doing it doesn't make sense. You can do a truck haul project for about $50 to $60 a cubic yard with very little mobilization in the tens of thousands of dollars. And so when you look at the cost per unit, truck haul on small projects is significantly less than on than a dredging project would be. Once you reach that level of about 500,000 cubic yards, the economy of scale takes over, and dredging becomes the cheaper, better alternative.
And faster.
And faster. So, but we looked at all of that and the way all this kind of played out, starting back with Florence, and at that time, a couple 100,000 yard truck haul project made the most sense for North Topsail Beach to go to work quickly. Then, of course, right after Florence, we had Dorian and Joaquin, and Matthew was in the mix there somewhere, and Isaias, and all of a sudden it totaled up a large number. Had we known all those were coming, we probably would have put them together into a dredging project, but you just don't know, and the money only lasts so long. So we kind of had to walk through that process the way we did.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So the project purpose, it's important what the purpose is. It's not just beach renourishment. One of the things that's really important about this project is, and this goes to the funding source, is that we're rehabilitating a core disposal site within the core easement. This allows us to use shallow draft navigation funds as a source for reimbursement. The state of North Carolina will reimburse $3 out of every $4 that was spent. If we do this, this site has been historically used to take care of shoaled sand in the Intercoastal Waterway and Cedar Bush Cut. It is at capacity, and the Corps of Engineers has not been able to use it for several years. They have run out of capacity in this general crossroads area. However, they continue to have shoaling and channel to Jacksonville, which is unsuitable for beach placement. So by doing this project, what we do is we gain very high quality sand. It's actually better quality than has been found by the Corps of Engineers offshore of Topsail Island, because the sand came from the beach originally. It is beach quality sand. It's slightly higher grain size than what we find offshore, but within the Corps right away, this allows us to give the Corps of Engineers nearly 100 years of capacity for channel to Jacksonville dredging. So this is a project that is beneficial on both ends of the pipeline, which is a really important thing for us as stewards of our area here, is to make sure we can get two birds with one stone anytime that's possible. This also helps with the coordination at times with folks like the Corps of Engineers and the federal agencies. If you can disturb a pre-disturbed area, then they take that much more kindly generally than they do if you're going after a fresh area offshore that might potentially have hard bottoms or other things associated with that. Again, one of the big things about this project is to restore that capacity and to make sure that not only does the properties on North Topsail Beach get protected, but the shrimping fleet in Sneads Ferry is also protected by providing a navigation alternative for them. Next slide, please. Again, the beach fill here is for this project is phases 1 through 3, as we've called them. We're trying to get away from the phase because they weren't done in order, so we're trying to talk about them in reaches. But at any rate, it's basically the area from the 210 bridge all the way up to the north. The template consists of a new primary dune and then 60 to 75 feet of beach berm out in front of it. There's a slide later on that will show that. The berm elevation is at about 5 foot NAVD 88 with a half foot over and underfill. This is the natural elevation of the beach. We don't design based on storm berm, keeping floodwaters out. What we do when we design is we go and look at a beach and where the rack line is on the storms, where it throws the trash and debris up, that's the top line. If you build above that on a day-to-day basis, the smaller waves will actually erode the front of the beach faster than a storm will. It will cause a scarp, And once you cause a scarp, sand hits at the bottom of that scarp, gravity makes the sand fall into it, and it's already in a slurry. What you want is to be low so that the wave action comes up, rides over it, and it requires gravity to work against picking up that sand. So in our designs, we look at that and we design typically a foot lower than the Corps of Engineers or other agencies do. But we've had great success with that both at Figure 8 and Topsail Island over the last 20 years designing this way. We key in the front dune slopes. We would be building to an elevation of 12 on the and 25 foot wide on the dunes with a front slope of 5 to 1. This is what we built at Topsail Beach. What we've seen over the last 4 years since building there is that once planted, these dunes tend to grow because this grain size sand does move with the wind. Dunes that were typically planted at elevation 12 within 4 years are now elevation 15 to 18, and we've gained up to 80 feet in width on the dunes naturally.
You also might want to mention the fact you've got double dunes up there now, which was very, when you took us out there, that was very interesting.
Yes, so one of the things we did there with the dune, and we'll show this in the template later, we don't cover up any existing vegetation. So if you've got on the natural slope now, we start at the bottom of where the vegetation is and come back up and build the dune there. So you get two sets of dunes. And what that does is it gets vegetation down at a lower elevation. As it traps sand, those plants grow up through that sand that it traps, and you get a mesh of root mat that can be anywhere from 10 to 12 feet thick. That's actually your barrier wall. So you're not just looking at a skim coat of fill it all in and then put a skim coat of plants on top. We want that root mat to extend all the way down to the beach elevation and come all the way up. And what you see too is that with these plants trapping sand, you see things like sea rocket that naturally takes out in front of the dune, and then it causes a hump, and as that hump gets high enough, it causes sea oats to take. And we actually have at Topsail a third row of dunes now growing. It'll actually get to a point in the future, if it keeps going, we're going to have to manage how far the dune's allowed to go forward. Otherwise, we're going to have issues with scarping just because the dune has overgrown. One of the great things too is we found over the years, I worked in Florida at the town of Jupiter Island for many years, and we had enough turtles there to actually have significant, statistically significant numbers on what we were doing. We had 900 turtles per linear mile in a 14-mile long town. So we averaged between 10,000 and 1,400 nests, 14,000 nests a year. One of the things we did was we did studies on what the slope should be on the dune to get those turtles to climb and get out of where they would get inundated, but at the same time not walk across the street. The 5 to 1 slope tended to be turtles would key on that slope, and if they started climbing that level of slope, when they got to the next flat spot, they dropped their eggs. There was question of whether that would work at Topsail, and for 4 years, every single turtle nest has been at the top of the slope. They climbed up 5 to 1, got to the flat, and dropped them right on top. We've not had to relocate a single nest in Topsail Beach since we put in the dune. So it is an environmentally, it's been a wonderful thing environmentally. Last thing here, I'll mention and go to the next slide. State law prohibits creating new dune in an inlet hazard area. So we will replicate the dune that was designed in 2013 up at the north end, and that will be what's placed up there, simply because we cannot build a new dune, newly designed dune up there. We're kind of stuck with that. So next slide, please. And here kind of gives you the scope of what we would do on these two slides. For the most part, in areas 2 and 3 and the southern part of 1 would look like what's on the left side of the screen. Wherever the vegetation line is, roughly at elevation +8 or top of scarp, we would come off of that and then move 25 feet out, come down on a 5-on-1 slope, and then go out roughly 65 feet, and then sloping down on a 1-on-25, which is kind of the natural slope and grade of the beach as it is. In the very northern area, which is to the right, there really is no dune up there around those sandbagged areas north of the reef. So we would come off of the front of the sandbags, or right at the front of the buildings, depending on which is more seaward, because in some cases the sandbags are kind of washed up under the buildings. We would build, again, a 25-foot wide dune and similar beach berm. The beach berm up there would probably be slightly wider, depending on what we had as a leftover amount of material. Once we got up into that area, we would kind of design on the fly there to maximize what we were doing.
So Chris, if I'm at the reef right now, if I'm looking at the one on the right-hand side, it looks to me like you're building about 12 foot of dune, basically from where the dotted line is to the 10 foot. Is that right? So they're going to be looking, if my house is right there at where they come together,
Yes.
I'm going to have a brand new dune in front of my house that looks, it's going to be about 10 feet high from current level. Is that right? Am I looking at that right?
So if you're standing at the reefs and looking down off of the bags there, you would see a flat come out it would be about six foot higher.
Right. What I'm looking at is the existing, right?
Correct.
And that's what you're going to build. So if this is my house
Yeah.
here, you're building up the dune and then.
Yes, that would be more like the beach club.
Okay. All right.
The reefs would look more like the sandbags the sandbags would look like the dune-ish feature on the
Okay.
left, and then
But that's got over 10 feet of dune. So everybody's gonna have a minimum of looks like about 10 foot of dune, is that right?
that's correct. And we'll put enough beach out there that the beach should hold the dune long enough that we can put plantings out there and they can grow. A lot of times when we do these just dune projects, the toe of the dune is actually almost in the ocean. So planting that toe of dune is just literally throwing plants into the ocean because they're going to get hit and taken in the first couple of days. And there's no sense in wasting that money or those plants to do that kind of work. So you really have to, and putting plants on the top of the dune doesn't really do much for you anyhow because the water's not hitting on the top of the dune, it's hitting on the face of the dune. So until you get enough beach out in front of it, dune planting does not do a whole lot for you. It really, you have to have the beach and the dune and the whole system working for the vegetative part of it to start taking hold and to work. You know, otherwise it's a feel-good thing. It feels great to have the whole dune planting. Look at, wow, look at all this we did. But from an engineering perspective, you know, that's taking a spray can to a beat-up VW Bug. It's not really making it pretty. It's just kind of covering things up. Next slide, please. So we identified this source, DA 143, almost 25 years ago. At the time, for any of you that have been around here forever, Marty Bostic was mayor. So that'll give you a timeline on this. Marty came to me through one of my dredging one of the dredging companies I was consulting for and said, hey, wouldn't this be great if we could put this island? My family owns this. Well, they really didn't, but he said his family owned the island and they wanted to donate it and have it put onto the beach. And we started looking at it. We walked out there, we dug around with a shovel and went, man, this is some good stuff. So over the past 20 years, this site has been looked at over and over and over as to whether it could be used as a borrow area. In fact, in the EIS for the whole overall 30-year project, this was designated as one of the borrow sites contingent geotechnical coming back appropriate on it, which it did in 2010, and then those timed out, and we had to do it again in 2024. And both times we've come up with very high quality sand and a manageable way of excavating it. This site is within the Corps of Engineers easement. It is a designated disposal site for the Corps. And if the Corps of Engineers wanted to rehabilitate this site, they could go in without permit and take all of this sand off of there and take it somewhere else. We're having to work with this through the state agencies because we are not the Corps. Next slide.
Those are core samples in the middle.
Oh, yeah, well, and we've got them here. These are core samples. You can see as you go down, if you look at these samples here, going from right to left, is from top to bottom, you go through and you can see the very, very bright white sand that was deposited on top of the island there back when the intercoastal was built. Then you get into some grayer sands that were original, and then you get down into a shell mud consistency down in the very bottom. Obviously, we don't take the worst of it. We cut off our dig depth to where we're getting, once we get out of the gray sands, that's where we want to stop. If you look at the comparison to the beach, the native beach, and the DA 143, you look at the mean grain size, they're within 0.02 of a millimeter of each other. The sand that came from offshore before was 0.18 millimeters, so it was slightly finer, which erodes a little bit quicker. Percent silt in this is very low at 5%. Percent shell content, you look at the native percent shells, 26%. It's only 8% in the disposal site, so less shell. So it's really it's not quite the golden grains we're getting out of the mine over off of 421, but it's pretty close. So very happy with the type of material that would come out of here. One thing to notice too, if you see this kind of what we call a spider map, do you see along the, it kind of looks like a spider web that's drawn in here around the numbers. Each one of those numbers, we take, where those X's are, we took a core. It was taken as a hydraulic press core, so it was 3 inches in diameter. And some of these we pressed down almost 60 feet below grade because of the elevation of the site. Then what we do is we take half the distance to each one of the other cores, and so that gets an area that is represented by that core. So we do this, it's Simpson's rule. If you took calculus, it's Simpson's rule is how we do the averaging of what the material types are. But this is a very standardized and repeatable way of doing this. We haven't done any ad lib and subjective layering where we're kind of guessing at stuff. It is done strictly by Simpson's rule. So one of the things that always makes me feel more comfortable about the geotech results that we get in the various sites. This is not our first rodeo. This would be the 4th island takedown for us locally, and our techniques are being used on a national scale. So this is not new science that we're doing. Next slide, please. Again, this talks about the elevation and proposed depth of cut. We would look at coming in off of the Cedar Bush cut side because there's no P&A over there. We would come in digging 14 foot deep, which is a standard depth for the dredge. We had good sand there. When we get in, we may, as we get toward the south end, there's some muddier material down low. So what we may do is fill in behind the dredge, the levee, raise the water level inside of it, and so we can lift the dredge up and maintain that we're only getting the best material possible. We do plan on screening because we know there's going to be stuff that was natural in there with the old marsh mat that's going to come out. We had that at topsoil. We had it at figure 8. That will trap any clay balls, any large oyster shells, anything like that. That will be trapped on the beach and trucked off and trucked away. So we won't be leaving the types of materials that were left in the 2014 project on the beach. Next slide, please. Pipeline route, which I guess a lot of folks would be curious about. And some people have brought up, there's some houses that have been built down there, but they have not been built in the area that we're dealing with here. But basically, we would come down the waterway, come across here along the wood line on the edge of that golf course, come across under this bridge. There's enough height there we can just slide the pipe under, and then we would split going south or north, depending on time during the project to go over to place the sand, roughly half and half. This keeps the pipeline distances fairly consistent, keeps the cost of dredging at its minimum. We looked at coming around the end of the island and going from one end to the other, but that was
Coming in from the north.
coming in from the north, coming down around the end of the island, coming onto the island, and pumping all the way to the south. But the extra line that required and booster placement was not conducive to keeping the price down. Doing it this way probably drops the price about $3 a cubic yard, or about $6 million on the overall project. Next slide, please. Again, the project consists of 2 to 2.5 million yards. As we mentioned, 4,000 dump truck loads a day. The 5.5 miles of beach that would be restored. The build rate would be 90 to 120 cubic yards per linear foot, which is a really good size project. You're talking about, at 100 yards a foot, you're talking 500,000 yards a mile, which is a good size project. Other projects have only been 50 to 60 cubic yards per foot, and some projects you're seeing now, folks get into doing only what FEMA will reimburse them for. We're seeing one project right now that's under 17 cubic yards a linear foot down in Myrtle Beach. That's nearly impossible to place. You can't add pipe fast enough because it's 40,000 yards of sand coming at you a day. You can't add on those 40-foot sticks of pipe fast enough. So even though you probably get more sand than you intended, you pay a lot more per cubic yard. Nobody gets anything for free. So, trying to put that where it's a good, doable level for the contractor, making it buildable, is important to keeping costs down. And again, we would look at a denser fill in the southern part of Reach 1 as we get up around the sandbag areas. One of the things we've seen with the Corps of Engineers disposals from the waterway is they start at the very north end, and usually by the time they make the turn and get going down in front of the houses, they run out of material. And all of that material winds up behind them on the tip of the island, not in front of the houses. So what we want to do is make this more of a feeder situation to where we're going to be fat, say, in front of the reefs, and those houses just below the reefs, and let that, we're going to put sand in front of the beach club, but that's not where the big chunk's going to go. It's going to go more in front of the reefs and let it slide into place because we know it's going to get pulled in that direction. Try to get as much use out of the sand as possible before it winds up in the back. That's the plan on what we want to do there. Next slide, please. Project costs. How much is all this going to cost? So to date, we have been contracted for about $650K to do the engineering on all of this, take it through the permitting process. We've spent about $375 of that getting to where we are. Currently, today's market, we're estimating 40 to 43 million in construction. To plant that whole 5.5 miles, about 2.1 million, and construction management about 1.2. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 million for the whole thing. The Shallow Draft Navigation Fund would reimburse 75% of that at 33 to 35 million, and the total town costs at 11 to 12 million out of pocket. Next slide, please. So where are we now? We're actually sitting on go. We have a permit application ready to submit. We had a meeting in May of this year. It's called a one-stop meeting. It's where you bring all of the regulatory agencies, state and federal, all to the table, say, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is conceptual phase. For us, it's usually about 90% design phase. What are your issues? Throw them at me. We want to go ahead and put these into the project. If there's mitigative needs, let's do it. Let's don't go through 6 sets of requests for additional information. Let's do it all up front. What we got out of that, we only got one real comment. Most of the agencies said, hey, this seems smart. We're getting things done on both ends of the pipe. It's working within the Corps of Engineers easement. The beach has already been permitted through an EIS. Looks great. North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission recently took over management of this island, DA 143, back in February. They are not the title holder. The North Carolina Division of Lands is. However, they're looking to Wildlife Resources for advice. Historically, if you got a CAMA permit, the easement from land from the Division of Lands was an automatic. Now it's not. We went through 7 months of radio silence from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. And then after a few connected phone calls right before Thanksgiving, we just got to simply, we don't like the project. Without explanation or without us being able to put forth any type of mitigative measures. Since then, we have been actively pursuing options at a political level to see if we can move those forward. Alice, the mayor, and I had a meeting with Senator Lazara on Friday. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission chair is an appointed position, and Senator Lazara has been willing to try to coordinate a meeting on our behalf with that agency, and hopefully we can do that way, that we can offer mitigative measures that are not too costly, and we can be true environmental stewards. If not, we have other options to move forward with the Corps of Engineers that would allow us to do this project, I won't say regardless of North Carolina Wildlife Resources, but they would not have nearly the input because the Corps already has easement on this land to do what they need to do to maintain the waterway. So at this point, we're trying to do what is the most stewardly, the least expensive, and the most expeditious. And we are traveling down 3 different lanes at the same time to make sure we do that for the town. So all of those are being looked at, not only, all of them are being looked at as very realistic and potential options to move this project forward. This project, from an engineering perspective, I think from an environmental perspective, makes too much sense not to do it. And I believe that one agency's concerns over potentially one non-endangered species will not outweigh all of the potential benefits to all of the other species that are out there.
What I was going to say before you leave that is we had, in my opinion, a very good meeting with Senator Lazara. Alice, did you want to weigh in at all? It was Alice, Chris, and I, and then Alice had drafted up a letter. So he's got a letter basically from Alice and I outlining what we're discussing with. He took a lot of notes. He's going to be working with the head of that commission.
Right.
And also, I think the commitment to have one of his people present for future meetings was a good committee.
Yeah, and he was presented with a wrap-up letter of our specific requests and where we are at this time. We just need to send him the communications as a wrap-up, which will be done today, where it stood with that agency on who you were communicating with. So that'll be sent today as a final wrap-up, and we'll let you know when we receive a response.
All right, next slide. I think this is about to wrap it up. So the next steps, again, is to apply for the shallow draft grant. We've talked about that, and I believe we're going to be doing stuff at the next board meeting, Board of Aldermen meeting, to go through the processes they have to go through to do that. We'll keep working on this easement at DA 143 and go ahead and start moving forward with the easements for the pipeline crossing. As soon as we can get all those in place, we'll submit a completed permit application. And I don't believe that this application, once submitted, will take a huge amount of time to go through, just from my conversations with the agencies.
Before you leave that real quick, so we haven't put together the formal agenda for January, but in our meetings, a couple of different meetings, we're kind of going a two-pronged approach, assuming the board goes along with this in terms of funding. One is the shallow draft fund. We also talked to the senator and other people about having specific legislation in our name, asking for beach funds from the state. The issue we've got right now, and Alice, you can help me on this one as well, is basically the state government is non-functioning right now, and the idea that you could get legislation of any kind either proffered or approved before this summer makes us say we're still gonna stay down that path. But I think right now, the focus will be, and hopefully the board will move forward on this, is to go ahead and file for the shallow draft money. It's a first come, first serve. It's not a timeline type of thing, so you want to get it in as soon as you can. So Alice, did you want to add anything?
No, you covered it.
Okay.
With that, probably these construction timelines that we saw in October have probably backed up a couple of 3 months. You know, we may be able to squeeze time out of the first 3 and still get started November 26th with the piping. But as far as going to bid, I would see that being more in the June timeframe than in a March timeframe. And then the rest of it, we would just have to squeeze. So that should be, I believe that's all. If we hit the next one, I think it's just questions.
Okay. What I wanted to do is follow up on some questions I had from different people. One is, for example, at St. Regis and at the, and basically all the way north, people put sandbags in, are they gonna have to take them out, that type of thing. Is the project going to be, is that going to be something that obviously you're considering as you're going forward and planning this type of thing as to what's there initially, right? So, because I know there's a lot of work. I know St. Regis and Alice, I know they've got sandbags and other things going on right now.
Let me say one thing before we move to that, because I think that may lead us into some questions.
Okay.
So let's just get us to where we really are. And I think that this has been where we are for a while. We've just had this little setback with wildlife people. It does appear, based on everything that Chris has communicated to people and things, that the mayor and the manager, town manager, have been doing, that we're going to be able to get past it. It's just a matter, we may have to pull in a little different direction than what we were going, but it doesn't look like anything's going to stop the process. It's just going to take the process. It may slow it down just a little bit more.
Different path.
A different path of doing it. But there's too many people that believe it's a good program. The Corps would help us real quickly, but that's something that we may have to do, but we would rather go the other direction if we can. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And so I think that this has been too long a project getting to this point, and everyone knowing where we were headed, those people in politics, those people in all the Corps, the wildlife, and everyone else. This isn't new to them. I mean, we've been doing this. They just pulled, you know, it's like the little man with the big badge scenario. Is sort of where it's going. So
Well, you might have mentioned the person that we got the letter back from is like a staff level person.
yeah,
Not even a manager within a department.
and wouldn't even give any rationale, just the fact that we're not going to do it. Anyway, that's your government up there. But in any event, you know, this process started. This BISAC committee was formed in 2021. And started in February of 2021. The process of this started prior to that. Right. When the board was doing it and people on the board, aldermen on the board, were working on it. So this thing got started some time ago. It's taken us for the last, since BISAC has been formed, it's taken us 4 years to get to the point we are now. We're so far along. We're so far along, and what I have found out is that when you're dealing with the government, everything goes slowly, and we, and it's just like I said in the very beginning of this. I mean, we'd had it done a long time ago, but we've got to have all these things you got to do, and you move from one problem to the next problem. We're right on the cusp. I mean, we're standing up on the diving board, fixing to jump in. But they just hadn't moved some mess out of the way for us to jump yet. And I think that we've got everything. It's been a long process getting to this point, and it's going to be a long process going on. That's why we call this a 5-year action plan and a 30-year maintenance plan. And because we're gonna be ongoing, we're gonna have plans ongoing for the 30 years and maintaining once we get this done. We really, when we say 5-year action plan, we're just getting to that 5-year point. I mean, really, we've been 4 years dealing with it where we are now. There was ever how much time was spent prior to, but this 5-year action plan, and we're gonna be finished up, if we get started when we are, then we're gonna be finishing up, you know, in 2027 or 8, when the last thing gets done. Don't you think? So I just believe that if you, anytime you're talking to any of your friends, let them know that there's not, we're not doing something. Something has been happening every month. And every day there's been somebody working on trying to get something done with this. So and our commitment to you is that we're going to continue, and we've got a board of aldermen that will support what we're doing right now. I mean, they would have before. I'm not saying they would not have, but so we're ready to go, and we've got the funding. Well, funding's not my business, but we've got our part of the funding that's going to be needed to move forward. So as long as we can get the things that Chris is talking about and these loans and the various things that we got to do that we're making applications for, then we're going to be able to move forward. So and this is the plan. This plan has not changed in the last 6-8 months. I mean, we've gotten it to this point, and we know this is the direction we're going. It's not, we're still making plans. Right now, we're just trying to get all the entities together to say, okay, bam, here's the rubber stamp and you can go. So we're committed as a committee to keep driving this forward, and we will continue to drive the Board of Aldermen to move forward to try to get this thing to where we can get it going.
If I could just add a couple of things. One is, it's not like we haven't done any beach projects, right, Terry? Okay, we got 4 done. We've got the one that we're working on now in the Dune project. So in between those 2, you're talking over 15 million, plus the other stuff we've done in 5 and everything else. Maybe we can have Fran do an update in terms of putting it all together. So it's not like nothing's been going on in the beach, but I think that the commitment, and I don't mean to speak for the new board, but I can tell you, the 2 guys sitting here are not going to let go of this thing. We're not going to let some bureaucrats stop this thing, and we'll do what we have to do to keep it moving. This is too important. But the other thing to keep in mind, though, is even after we get this done, the board, and we've looked at this going forward, we understand nourishing the beach is not a once every 5-year deal, that we're going to have to commit money to it. We've got, that's why it's in the beach fund. We've got one more payment to make to pay off the Phase 5 loan, which when we started, Alice, was $15 million, right? And now we're down to less than $2 million payment, so there'll be no beach debt as of May. And that included the special obligation bonds and stuff. And if you look at the financial reports of the town, we've put the cash away on this type of thing, and we're going to move forward, hopefully, with bringing back the financial consultant we've got so we can make sure we've got the funds and the structure. And that's why we're looking to Chris's point about going after shallow draft. The people that got to hear me talk about every dollar lost costs us 4, right? We've talked about that before. We want as Danny DeVito said, we want to use other people's money to get this thing, and that's the model that you used in Topsail as well.
And it has been proven that Phase 5, through all these past storms, knock on wood, has fared very well since it's become an engineered beach. And 4, since they've become engineered beaches. So, you know, we know it's going to work. We just, I mean, you're never going to beat Mother Nature. You know, but one thing you can do is try to lessen the damage whenever Mother Nature decides she's going to get to you, and be able to get all the phases to where they're available for FEMA money or whatever facsimile there are of FEMA money that's going to be out there, which is what's going to happen when we make phases 1, 2, and 3 engineered beaches, which will happen once we do this. So,
Chris has got a couple.
I guess one of the questions that was brought up was, how would people installing sandbags affect what we're doing? And the reality is they won't. Everything we do, when we design in generalities to start with, and then look at what is exactly on the ground exactly before we go and fill those areas. Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but the new rules. Oh, I'm sorry. Jamie Pratt's one of my, as a PE and a professional geologist that works with me at TI Coastal. He's one of my business partners. The new rules are that you can bury the sandbags now. So,
Yeah, correct. Sorry. Well, go ahead.
so the new rules have it, used to you couldn't bury the sandbags. Now you can. So what you would be looking at is a dune coming off where it intersects with the sandbags, coming off 25 feet, then coming down, and then going to the beach. So what we'd want to do is bury those sandbags, keep them in place as a backstop should anything ever happen down the road. That's a line of last resort. But get them buried and have them be part of the non-seen structural protection for the properties.
Yeah, I worked with a homeowner in Porpoise Place following the northeaster in October and helped them get sandbags installed in front of their house. And talking with CAMA representatives, it was not only can you bury the bags, but they encourage you to bury the bags. So it would be a fantastic thing if you can get bags. If you were eligible for them, it would basically be a core for the dune. And then once we do construction on the bigger project and build new dune systems, it would be, as Chris said, a backstop or a fail-safe if we get a storm, multiple storms in a row, to kind of ensure that that dune base stays in the future.
Also, the question brought up was, what if the groin comes into play? How does that work? If the groin were to come into play and be built before we were to do any work at the north end, what we would end up doing probably is not, there would be a slight shift in design where we filled the fillet, the area that the groin is supposed to hold beach. We would build that beach that it's supposed to hold, but we wouldn't build any extra beach. We wouldn't build any sacrificial beach up there. That would be spread in a more, spread out more along the length of Reach 1. Anything that we would put as a feeder beach up there, we would just put through the whole length of the thing. But we would, if that came into play, again, the way we design our projects, we design for permitting. We go back and look at it because we're surveying every year to start with in the summer. And that's to keep you guys compliant with FEMA so that you can get dune money or beach money. We update our designs as we update those surveys. So, because obviously the volume changes from year to year, from month to month. So when we see something happen, say we have the surveys that we do for the bid document, and that goes out in June, but we're not going to work until November. Well, we have a storm in September. Obviously, we're going to resurvey from that storm. We're going to redesign. We're going to talk about what money we've got, what volume of sand we've got, how all that works out, and redesign based on those things to get the most efficient project. And then as we get into the project, if things change during the project, another storm during the project changes something, I don't know, swimming pool pops out on the beach and we've got a gap to fill, it could be anything. But all of those things we're looking at real time and adjusting for real time. Our guys are on the beach surveying what's being placed, what needs to be placed in a running 2,000 foot long block, and we're looking at that every night and deciding what needs to be done to get the best, most efficient project as we go. We don't do it, here's your design, walk away from it. Yes, you built the design, no you didn't. We're an integral part of that to make sure that everything gets done as efficiently and cost effectively and as environmentally sensitive as possible from start to finish.
So fluid design.
Fluid design, yes. We are OTF, very much on the fly.
Is any of the board want to ask questions before we open it up to the public?
Where,
No, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Ian Gertis from Phase One. You just mentioned the groin. I mean, last time we talked, I believe you said, the EIS was in, but you didn't really know what was going to happen with the groin.
No, it's like July now, right?
You're asking the wrong gentleman on that one. I'm like you.
Alice can address it.
Go ahead.
The board approved, moving forward, Dow Cordy and Associates, who's the engineer, to keep work going with the additional information that they needed, so that we didn't have further delays while the government was shut down. The latest schedule that we have, because I've been in constant contact with the Army Corps of Engineers since they've started working, they expect to have, their latest schedule shows, which is, again, fluid and subject to change, as December 18th, 2026 as the permit decision date. So that's where we're at right now, is December 18th, 2026 for permit decision, based on the updated schedule.
But understand, when she's talking about that, generally, these things get caught up in
Lawsuits.
in lawsuits. So that's, the whole idea, as you know, on this board was, we looked at it and said, if the groin happens, that's great, but we're not gonna sit for 5 years hoping those people, because they've had it for how many years now, Alice?
Right, several years, going back before me and my 4-year tenure. So even December 2016,
December 2016.
okay.
Is when we
So-
started.
And we don't know what they're gonna come up with is the ultimate recommendation. It could be a groin, it could be nothing, it could be anything in between. We just don't know what that recommendation is gonna be. But we have, it's assumed that if they do recommend a terminal groin and the board decides to approve funding to construct one, then we anticipate the environmental agencies to initiate lawsuits, which will throw the timeline off as well.
The point being, this is why we decided to do what we're doing here, is because, it's the old joke with I'm from the government, here to help you. They said 2016 is when the town started moving with this thing. And them telling us that December of 26 is that. And what was it, Ocean Isle that got, how long was that tied up in litigation? They're going, it was years. So we just decided we're gonna self-help. We're not gonna keep messing around with these people. If it comes out, that's great, we'll look at it, but we can't do nothing, and that's why we're gonna rebuild one as well.
And the
That's
board
it.
through this whole process too, I mean, there's been additional modeling that's been requested, the board's approved and it approved all the funding that was necessary that they needed to keep things moving forward. But we-
Okay, I thought the EIS was already done and they'd come up with a recommendation.
Now, we were trying to, what we were trying to do was to get permission, we were trying to get a permit to put a temporary retention structure that would not have been the groin, but had been something that we would have been trying to place there in substitute of the groin until such time as we could get a permit for a groin. And having known that we could build upon the temporary retention structure to create the groin. So we were just trying to get a permit for that, and that's the thing that in this early permitting process, we got turned down. The actual terminal groin was some time back that they did. That was a separate thing, it hadn't been involved with this committee.
And the final draft of the EIS is anticipated in July of 2026.
No, that was where I was going with that one. But I do have a question I'm not sure how to ask. When our dredging project gets started, looking back, and not trying to step on any other agency's toes or anything, but I know the last couple of years just noticing that when the Corps comes in and they're doing a dredge and they're pumping, if they decide, and they're on a timeline, this is a 30-day project. If they break down and they're broke down for 8 to 10 days of that 30 days, well, that's those days it doesn't happen. And it, and times it doesn't look like, anything's moving, anything's happening, but when the time runs out, well, we're done, we're gone, and there's still a quarter mile of beach that you could be doing something with. With what we're doing, with what this project's going to do, and the contract goes out to the dredging company, like I say, I'm not sure how I want to ask, how I'm asking this question, but are we holding the dredging company to a standard, you told, we're looking at approximate, and I'm sure you've got a standard deviation either way, but have we got some say-so? Right, or is it just when, okay, well, it's July 31st, we'll see you later?
Okay, so what you're talking about is the difference in a per cubic yard job and a rental job. And so there's no misconception. With the Corps of Engineers, when you have the sidecaster here, they are on a rental. If they show up for 30 days and the weather is bad, 22 of them, you get 8 days of dredging, and that's it. When they dredge the intercoastal waterway, they remove a certain amount of volume from the intercoastal waterway. The dredger has to clear a template and is paid for those yardages that they remove from the template.
On a per yard basis.
On a per yard basis. If they have it scheduled to remove up to 45,000 cubic yards, the range, they'll give them a range because of the depth. So let's say it's between 35 and 45,000 cubic yards, and they remove 42,000 cubic yards, they get paid for 42,000 cubic yards. Same kind of thing happens when we do a beach project. We'll do, with this particular project, it's a way to distribute risk. What we do is we pay for material dredged out of the borrow area. Okay? So that material that comes out of there, we'll survey that island before they start digging. We'll survey it as they're digging. We know how much material they've moved from where. They have to put that material on the beach. And if there's more than a prescribed loss where they don't get it placed in template, they don't get paid for that. This way, the risk of silt content, we distribute the risk between the owner and the contractor, and that gets you the best price. So yes, they can't, this isn't a rental. They don't work November 15th to March 15th and get paid the same no matter what they do. They have got to produce in order to get paid. And even it goes as far as like when they mobilize, they have to meet a particular 24-hour production schedule. They have to be completely, totally ramped up before they get paid for their mobilization. So they can't kind of show up and limp along for 2 weeks and get their full mob because it's a big chunk. They have to show a full-fledged production.
So it's staged in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that answer either, Rusty. That was a good question.
Yeah, glad I could answer it for you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, we're to the point. If the public, if anyone for the public has any questions or comments, once again, we'd like for you to come up to the come up to the podium and turn it on and speak. You got 3-minute name, address, and 3 minutes and go.
The red light's on, you're on.
There we go. Hey everyone, I'm Cody Edwards. I'm actually the contractor working out at 2000 New River Inlet Road, so I kind of came here to represent St. Regis. And a lot of my questions were answered during this, which was very informative. But behind the sandbags, how will that work with the beach hall? So if that starts in January, you said you dumped like 25 foot or so in front of it. Is there any sand that can be put behind it, or is it something that St. Regis would be responsible for?
St. Regis would be responsible for what's going on behind the sandbags.
Got it. Okay.
We don't have, I'm not sure that we even have easements to go up into that area, and the risk to your sandbags would be greater than the town would want to take on.
Sure. That's what I figured. What we wanted to ask to be sure, yeah, that makes sense. I thought they'll bring trucks out, kind of dump it right in front of the bags, and then keep running and rolling.
Didn't you tell me there's a gap? There's going to be a gap between those? Or is that not? Okay, forget it.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Liz Beckingham, and I live at Shipwatch Condos. This is probably a dumb question and hopefully a simple one, but I hear people talking about the back of a dune and the front of a dune. Can you tell me which is which? I always thought the back would be close to the road, but then I hear people saying, no, the back is next to the ocean.
Not a dumb question. Dumb
good.
questions are ones not asked.
Okay.
So back of the dune would be the landward side of the dune. Front of the dune would be the ocean side.
Okay, okay,
Yes,
thank you.
You're right.
Okay, good, thank you.
Anyone else?
Mark Barefoot, 246 Sandpiper. First of all, great informational meeting. Two questions. First question is backfilling behind the sandbags. Does that have to be certain general quality standards? Can it just be regular field dirt? I mean, it's the owner's property. They should, personally, my personal opinion is whatever they need to support the back of that sandbag.
So I'm looking at Jamie, who's done a lot more research on this than I, but it's apparently beach quality.
Okay. So, but there'd be no permitting required or anything like that?
I would think there would be CAMA permitting. If you got sandbags going in, backfilling behind the sandbags would, to me, would be part of your gross permit for the sandbags.
And the only reason I'm asking that question is because I've been asked that question before.
Yeah.
Second question is, I love the answer on the fly. Everybody knows if you're taking the vegetation down, I think August through October, and then starting in November, hurricane season, heaven forbid we have another hurricane, or heaven forbid two, being able to be on the fly to adjust timelines and
Yes.
whatever, and then also trying to get that permitting sooner than later, because that pushes everything back too.
Sure.
All right. Other than that, thank you for your time.
Quite
Thank you.
welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, then.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, we made it, and actually on time. Look, we've still got 10 minutes. You want to talk some more?
She said he's gonna slap me.
Let's, all right, our next meeting is I'm gonna schedule our next meeting for Tuesday, February the 17th. And you'll be getting a notice on that. We're not gonna schedule a January meeting because we're where we are. This was a pretty substantial meeting that we got the information out. We don't anticipate that between now and the January timeframe that a lot of things are gonna change. So we're now scheduling tentatively our next meeting for Tuesday, February the 17th, same time here in this place. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor say aye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Alice.
Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you, everybody.